President Trump continues to defend his sweeping tariffs on foreign goods, but Tuesday he said 145% import taxes on some Chinese products would, quote, come down substantially. Earlier Wednesday, CBS News chief White House correspondent Nancy Cortez asked Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt about trade with China.
What have these huge tariffs on China accomplished?
Leverage and ensuring the rest of the world knows that the United States of America is no longer going to be ripped off. President Trump has made that very clear, not just with China, but with almost every single country on the planet.
But has that leverage actually worked? Because China hasn't made any concessions at all.
Have some patience and you will see.
Have some patience and you will see. CBS News White House reporter Navarro joins us now. So while the administration says have some patience, we're learning the heads of Walmart and Target warned President Trump about what his tariffs will mean for their stores. What did they say? Did it have an impact?
Lindsay, good to be with you. What we've learned here at CBS News is that these CEOs of Walmart, Target privately warned President Trump in the meeting earlier this week that his tariff policy could impact their supply chains and potentially trickle down to the consumers with a shortage of certain goods and potentially empty shelves. Now, this price increase for consumers is something that CEOs of Target have talked about publicly in interviews, but it's, of course, notable they're bringing their concerns directly to the president. Now, the White House and the president battle back against any assertion that they are softening their approach to tariffs. But if you just look at what they've been doing, you saw Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent say that the relationship between the U.S. and China is unsustainable right now. He talked about de-escalating. And President Trump has talked about in recent days of lowering that tariff depending on cooperation with China. And we just heard in an Oval Office meeting where President Trump signed some executive orders that when asked, when could these tariffs be lowered on China, you saw Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick say it really depends on them. And you heard President Trump make a little bit of news when asked if there are talks happening with China. And he said, quote, of course they are happening every day. Now, the White House has not confirmed that before, if there were direct talks happening between the two big global markets. So that's certainly some news there.
Wouldn't we get a readout if there were direct talks?
Well, we haven't so far yet. And the White House has primarily been talking about negotiations with non-China countries, saying that there are 18 offers on the table, that they've been in touch with over 100 countries. But certainly China is at the core of President Trump's, quote, reciprocal tariffs. But they have not given the readout yet on how those talks are going.
President Trump also signed executive orders Wednesday in his efforts to remake higher education. What should we know?
Yeah, a handful of things. One of them expanding artificial intelligence use in early education, setting up a White House initiative for historically black universities and colleges, something that President Biden also made a priority during his own administration. But one order in specific talks about the accreditation system and potentially molding and changing that. Now, the accreditation system or organizations that examine curriculums for colleges and universities to see whether they meet certain standards and can receive federal funding and tap into the federal loan system. The White House is looking to mold this, go after third-party organizers who they say are, quote, using woke ideology to accredit universities instead of merit and performance. It's just another example there of the White House looking to reshape higher education and federal government's role and potential control in that space.
Elon Musk says he will soon spend less time in Washington. Now, we should remember he's a temporary employee with special status. He was always going to work until May. But he made this announcement on a Tesla earnings call. What's the significance of that, and will he still be doing any government work?
Yeah, it comes as Elon Musk himself acknowledged on that call that his work with Doge is causing, quote, a natural blowback to Tesla, which has seen its stocks plummet or drop since December. And President Trump actually was asked about this earlier this hour. He called Elon Musk, quote, a tremendous guy, said he was always going to leave and ease out at this time. He talked about him kind of in the past tense. And Musk himself has said that Doge has done the work of ingraining themselves in federal agencies. So still expect the work of Doge to continue, despite Elon Musk saying he will take a step back.
Navarro, thank you. Democratic attorneys general in 12 states have filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration seeking to block his new tariffs on foreign imports. The suit was filed Wednesday evening in the U.S. Court of International Trade in Washington, D.C. In the filing, the attorneys general write in part, quote, the president has no authority to arbitrarily impose tariffs as he has done here. CBS News Money Watch correspondent Kelly O'Grady joins us now. So, Kelly, what are these attorneys general in 12 states arguing here?
So I was just looking at the suit, and basically they're saying that Congress has not given the president the authority to do this. And then specifically, he used the International Economic Emergency Powers Act. And this suit is arguing that the stipulations within that act were not met for this to be called an emergency to impose these tariffs. So that's what they're arguing.
It sounds similar to California's suit.
It's exactly good memory. It's very similar. New York is one of them, and Governor Kathy Hochul, she said this statement. She said his tariffs are unlawful, and if not stopped, they will lead to more inflation, unemployment, and economic damage. Actually, I'm sorry, that was Attorney General Letitia James. What they're saying is this is causing economic chaos, and so that's really the harm part of the suit, that you're going to have so much inflation, and so that's sort of the argument. What comes next? The White House will be able to respond. Then there's sort of the discovery phase. And then if this were to ever get to trial, a judge needs to decide if the suit could actually go forward.
I mean, part of that turmoil has been some up and downs we've been seeing in the markets. We know the markets rallied this morning, Wednesday morning, as Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent highlighted opportunities for the U.S. and China to work together. Let's go ahead and play some of his remarks.
China needs to change. The country knows it needs to change. Everyone knows it needs to change. And we want to help it change because we need rebalancing too. And if they want to rebalance, let's do it together. This is an incredible opportunity.
He also said the IMF and the World Bank are not meeting their mission. They're falling short of their missions. What do you make of his comments?
I'm glad to hear that Bessent and the White House do seem to sort of have their story straight, if you will, because we are sort of hearing that same messaging that there are the potential for deals, but China there has to be a rebalancing of trade. The thing that I did take heart, his speech, he said, America first does not mean America alone, that we want to work together. And so you did see markets respond, but I will note we didn't see them close on their highs. There was a little bit of a pullback because regardless of, even if negotiations do happen, trade deals take months and months to make happen. And we don't have any concrete, tangible thing on the table right now.
Let's talk Tesla. Those shares rose more than 5% Wednesday. We just mentioned Elon Musk, allergy season, saying that his time spent running Doge will drop significantly in May. He's still going to be maybe sort of dip a toe in there. They just announced, while you were listening to the call, 71% profit drop in the first quarter. How significant is that? I mean, EV sales in general are up, right?
Right. The EV market has stalled a little bit. There are issues where you have American companies competing against China. There are structural issues within the market, but specifically with Tesla, this was sort of borne out, all of the brand issues they're having and consumers drawing back. What I do take heart in, though, at least for Tesla's future, is that investors didn't seem to care. The stock popped because I think what they took was, you're going to take a step back from Doge and you're going to focus more on Tesla.
Do investors just hear what they want?
Sometimes.
It's okay.
Sometimes.
Read between the lines.
Sort of the day-to-day.
Yeah,
because the thing is, investors were
leaves.
expecting this to be a really bad earnings report. I don't think that was really unexpected, and that was what they wanted to hear.
Okay. Kelly O'Grady, thank you.